store of your own, make sure to submit it over to OriginalGenSen@gmail.com. I also want to thank my good friend Robin for making the new intro to the channel. He's very talented and you guys should go check him out. I'll put a link to his Instagram page and Twitter in the bio. For reference, I work as a barista in a coffee shop inside of a larger store. I'm one of a handful of male baristas at my shop. I'm gay and very open about it. I wear pride shoes, I have a pride flag attached to my name tag, and I have a couple of wristbands with rainbows and phrases like Orlando Strong and LGBT plus center. So the other day I was working my shift at the register. A gentleman comes up to me and smiles. I think he notices the pride flag on my name tag, but he didn't explicitly mention it at first. He says he doesn't know what he wants to order and asks me for my opinion. Now, I'm not particularly a coffee drinker, but I know what drink fits what taste. So I ask him what he likes and I try to give him recommendations. As I'm talking, I can tell he's paying more attention to me than to what I'm saying, which I'm completely okay with. He was a shorter but well-built man, had beautiful eyes and a nice beard. Basically the perfect DILF. Eventually he decides on a super sweet iced drink that we have and I go make it for him. As I'm making the drink, one of my coworkers leans over and whispers, "I think that customer just took a picture of you." That was a bit of a red flag, but I thanked her and kind of brushed it off. I gave him his drink and he smiles. He points to the pride flag and says, "I love that flag. I'm gonna get one of those." I laugh and said I got it from a pride event I went to a few years ago. He then said, "And where can I get the person it's attached to?" I immediately feel a rush and I start blushing, but trying to act professional, I brush it off. He eventually takes his drink and sits at one of the tables. I continue going on about my day, debating whether I should give in to this guy or not. Every now and then I would glance at his table and see him looking at me. No matter when I looked, it seemed like he was looking at me. I started to get that weird feeling of hard eyes with red flags. Then I noticed he hasn't taken a single drink out of his coffee. Remember, it was an iced coffee drink, so I could see the clear plastic cup. When I have a break and go to wipe down some of the tables, I stop by his table and ask if he didn't like the drink, and if not, I could make him a new one free of charge. He hands me the drink and mentions he's not sure if it's too sweet for him or not and asks me to try it. I politely decline, telling him I don't drink coffee. He's shocked and asks me why I'm working here and blah blah blah. As we're talking though, his questions start to change. "So, do you lift at all?" "No, not really." "Well, how much do you think you could lift if you had to?" "The job requirement is 50 pounds, so I guess at least that much." "Well, I've learned that it's good to be able to lift at least half your body weight." "How much do you weigh?" Immediate red flags go off. There was something about the combination of the drink and the two questions that he made that made me feel like I was being asked how much of a fight I'd be able to hold, especially if I was drugged. I've been drugged at a party before, and these things are red flags that I've learned to pick up on. So I kindly and quickly end the conversation and go back to cleaning up tables. As the hours go by, he continues to sit there, not drinking his drink. Other employees and a couple of managers ask if everything's okay. He says he's perfectly happy. Every now and then, he takes a phone call, and at one point, I swear I see a guy on his phone at a different part of the store talking opposite of the guy at the table. Suddenly, I start to feel like there's more eyes on me than I realize. I pull one of my managers to the back and tell him that I'm getting weirder and weirder feelings about the guy, and the manager says we'll keep an eye on him. Now, I was closing on this shift, and so as we got closer and closer to closing time, I noticed him still sitting there. Then the announcement that the store is closing in half an hour is made. He comes up to the counter and asks if he could walk me to my car after I get off. I tell him our closing duties take up to at least 45 minutes after we close, and he says he'd be happy to wait. I politely decline, and he asks when I work next. I tell him I'm off for a couple of weeks. Well then, I feel like I should walk you to your car, especially if I might not be able to see you for a couple of weeks. No fucking way. I politely decline, and eventually he leaves. I finish my closing duties and head to the employee area. As soon as I get down there, I tell one of the managers about the situation and ask if I can take the side exit from the store. At our store, we exit out of one of the main doors after we close, but there's a side door that we use to get into the building before we open, and that the managers use to get out of after we close. He agrees and tells me he'd walk me to my car to make sure I'm okay. If I'm cool with waiting a little while, I am. So, I walk out the side doors with a couple of managers. I get into my car, and as I'm driving away, I see a large van with extremely tinted windows parked in front of the store. There's no way to know for sure if my customer was in that van, and if it was as ominous as I thought it was. But I know I was not about to stay to figure out. And I took a long and winding path home that night. So to the very hot guy that I sold coffee to, let's not meet. Unless, of course, I just read all those things wrong and you're just socially awkward and were actually into me, and not in a creepy way. But just to be on the safe side, let's not meet. When I was in the 3rd grade, there was this girl in my class. She wasn't particularly liked by anyone, as she was quite the bully and an overall rude person, even to adults. She was known to have anger issues and get mad at people for what seemed like no reason. I was no exception. Her name was Carly. She had been mean to me in the past, but that didn't deter me from going to her house one day after she had been nice to me all day at school. Naive, I know. So before leaving school that day, I called my mom and asked if I was allowed to go to Carly's house. She said yes, and to call her when I get there so I can give her the address. Now when I think back, I wonder if she had a bad feeling with the situation, since she doesn't normally ask for the address, and she isn't picking me up since Carly's house was about 2 blocks away. When I got there, after calling my mom of course, Carly insisted on making me look pretty, aka wetting my hair and brushing it. I let her. Then she told me to close my eyes and that she was taking me to the living room. I closed my eyes and she began to guide me towards the bathtub. We were already in the bathroom, so the tub was a solid 2 feet away from where we were standing. I opened my eyes just enough to see where she was guiding me. My foot hit the side of the tub and I said, "This doesn't feel like the living room." She said it was, and that I just need to step over the gate. I tell her that I know this is the bathtub. She stops trying to get me into the tub and brings me to the kitchen instead. She says she's going to make cereal. I was standing behind her when she reached into her dishwasher and said she was grabbing a spoon. The way she clarified that she was grabbing a spoon immediately told me that she was really going to grab, and it was for sure not a spoon. I could still remember the feeling of dread that overcame me when she said those words. She pulls out a large knife and backs me up into a corner, holding the knife only inches away from my neck. I can't remember if any words were exchanged during this. Maybe I was just too shocked to say anything. I only stayed there for maybe 30 seconds before I pushed her aside and ran towards the door. I grabbed my backpack and put on my winter boots. By the time I had my boots on, Carly was trying to block the sliding door. I pushed past her and flung open the door, and I ran down her patio steps and out of her front gate, not bothering to close it. I just wanted to get home and to where I was safe. I remember her yelling at me as her dogs escaped through the open gate. I didn't care. One of her neighbors who was in the front lawn waved and smiled at me. clearly oblivious to what had just gone down. I ran down the road and to my house, not stopping once. It wasn't until I was in the door of my house that I broke down. I began to cry and yell for my mom, my two older sisters yelling at me to shut up. My mom walked over to me and immediately knew something was wrong. I explained what happened and she was very understanding and freaked out. I can't remember if it was the same day or the next that I had to talk to the police officers about what had happened. He asked me what kind of knife it was and whatnot. I think my mom relayed most of the story to him because I don't remember having to say much. They got in contact with Carly's foster mom and Carly got in big shit for it. At school, Carly yelled at me for getting the cops involved and tried to guilt trip me by saying that her mom threatened to put her back into foster care if she did anything like that again. I told her I didn't care. The school was also notified of the situation and the teachers made sure to keep an extra eye on her. But that didn't mean I wasn't paranoid around her. I made sure to keep my guard up for the rest of the school year. Which was true, she had it coming. I always thought that it was a bit extreme to involve the cops, but I ended up making Carly never mess with me again. I ended up moving after that year for unrelated reasons, only to move back before I started 6th grade. The first day of middle school, I was waiting for them to call my name, so I know which class is my homeroom, when I hear an all too familiar name, Carly, her last name. I watched as no one goes up to join the class. Was she not there? Next, I was called. I go to join the class that she would have been in. I found out later that when the teacher was doing attendance, that she had moved 3 hours away just before the beginning of the school year. It's been 3 years since then, and I can only hope she doesn't come back. And if she does, I'm not too concerned. And if she does, I will make sure that she stays the fuck away from me. That incident gave me some trust issues, but at least now, I know to choose my friends wisely. This is actually my second post here, and the second time I was stalked, so to speak. I'll try to keep this short, but some backstory is involved, so bear with me. I was working as an assistant manager at a local KFC where I worked for roughly 2 to 3 years. I had some very good memories from this place as well as some really funny stories. We became severely understaffed at one point, and my general manager at the time left to work for Cece's Pizza, another local chain. Because of this, I was left in charge of the store until they found or decided on replacement for him. After probably 3 months or so, during this time, tensions were high due to our staffing issues, and I was given a raise for holding down the fort / keeping the store open, despite most of the employees walking out on me that one night. They finally send us help. A guy and several of his employees from a store located about 40 minutes away. Some things to understand about this store. It was located in a very wealthy neighborhood and subsequently had very wealthy employees. Anyway, new manager, Mike, comes in and immediately starts barking orders at everyone. Obviously, no one listening to him. But when I tell them to do the same exact thing, they get it done post-haste. He asks why they won't listen to him, but will listen to me, and I explain to him that they aren't here for the money. They're here for the experience. I remind him that they're driving Ferraris to work and that he needs to be their friend and their boss. In other words, earn their respect and they will respect you. He agrees to let up on them and try to make it my way instead. He did listen to me and did start to earn their respect. Then he turns on me and starts demanding stupid and ridiculous things around the store, most that are which related to late night cleaning and which he knew I didn't do myself and didn't have time for with deposits and whatnot. I got immediately pissed off and told him to fuck off. After a few weeks of this and a serious amount of stress over the last few months, I decided to put up my 2 weeks notice. At this point, I had already started looking for a job elsewhere and had several job offers on the table. I took a job about 2 miles up the street at a local Burger King as their general manager. I ended up working a lot of late shifts because we were understaffed for those particular shifts. This was fine, but it also meant closing the front by myself, mopping storefront, locking doors, etc., while my cook closed the back of the house. I didn't really pay much attention at first. Hell, it was barely noticeable. But at the same time, every night, the same car would park in front of the lot facing the store and just sit there for hours on end. I honestly thought it was kids making out or something at first, but that clearly was not the case. I was always last to leave the store and set the alarm. One night, the second I locked the door behind me and start to head to my car, the engine turns over in the car at the front of the restaurant. It startled me, so I looked over, but all I could see was the headlights and the car didn't move. I hurried to my vehicle and started to drive away. The second I left the parking lot, so did the other car in the parking lot. My drive wasn't particularly far from home, but I had this gut feeling that it would be a bad idea to head there. I started down the very empty 1 a.m. highway and switched into the left lane with the guy still following behind me. After about a minute or two at 10 or 15 miles above the speed limit, I decided to switch into the right lane and drastically slow down to see if he'll pass me. The guy also switches over and slows down drastically. Now, I'm not stupid. I know when I'm being followed, and at this point I'm scared. I grab my almost dead phone and call my husband. I frantically sprout off what's going on, and he tells me to drive to the police station. So I start heading in that direction. I don't know if this guy caught on to that or not, but right before we hit the road the station is on, he blows by me at an insane speed and keeps driving. I turn around and went home. Fast forward another week, I see the same guy sitting out in the parking lot again in the same car. This time I call the cops right away, at the urging of my cook and my assistant manager. The cops show up and get the guy to come out of the car. It's Mike from my old job. He tells him he wasn't doing anything wrong and developed a crush for me from the other time together at our old job and just wanted to say hi. They did not arrest him, but told him to get the fuck out of there, loitering, and put enough fear into him that he did not show back up again. Hey there guys, this is a bit of an older story as I'm in my late 20s now, and this happened while I was in high school junior, on mobile, so sorry for any grammatical or spelling mistakes. When I was about 17, I was dating a kid who went to the same regional high school as me. He lived in the city that was next to my small town, so the kind of environments we were used to were completely different. You could walk barefoot down the street in my town or leave your front door unlocked at night. You could definitely not do the same where he was from. Anyway, one day our school has an early release day and myself and my boyfriend, we'll call him D, and his friends Jay all decided to walk to Jay's house to hang out. It was a long walk from the school to Jay's house, but it was in broad daylight, and there were 3 of us, so we didn't feel uncomfortable walking through the rougher parts of the city. I paid close attention to the route we took, walking along a busy and populated street with storefronts, through an alley and in the back of an old factory building, repurposed to hold a boutique and a sports supply shop, through an area with some construction. I'm normally bad with directions, but these landmarks helped me to figure out the path we took. We finally arrived at Jay's house to get some snacks, hang out at a local playground to use the swings, and then Jay has to leave to go to guitar practice, and Dee and I hang on our own for a bit. Dee eventually gets a call from his mom saying he has to go home for some dumb reason. I won't get into it, that's a whole nother story. And I'm left on my own. So now I'm at this park in the middle of the city by myself. Okay, I say to myself, I know how to get back, just go to these landmarks. This is how I have to navigate. I start working my way back through the streets we took, through the construction area, past the factory building, through the alley. It was daytime, but these were supposed to be the most sketchy areas our trip took us through. I made it through them just fine. I finally came to the busy street with the shops. A car passed every few seconds, and there were people coming in and out of the shops almost constantly. It was broad daylight and in an area that was well kept and neat. It should have been the safest way home, right? As I'm making my way on the sidewalk, a car pulls down a side street in front of me. I think that he's trying to merge onto the main street and into the traffic, so I stop to let him go. Instead of pulling forward, he rolls down the window. It's an older man, maybe early 60s. No real concerning features other than the short gray hair. It seems normal enough. He speaks to me. "Excuse me, do you know how I can get to Jefferson Street?" I'm not from the city, so I honestly wouldn't know how to give directions. But it's a pretty well-known street there. There were a ton of major businesses on that street. It seemed weird for an adult not to know how to get there. It was like not knowing how to get to the main street, but I was a kid who didn't drive, so I didn't know. "No, sorry, I don't know." "Man, are you sure you don't know how to get there?" "No, sorry." He pauses. "Why don't you get in my car with me and you can show me how to get there?" "Wait, what?" Now, if you've ever been in a weird situation like this, you might be familiar with that time stop sensation. It's like you're looking at everything from far away for a moment, and you can take everything in. In this moment, I'm thinking a few things. This guy just pulled up to a 17-year-old girl in broad daylight on a busy street. He's blocking my path. I just told him I don't know how to get to Jefferson Street, but he's now asking me to get into this car to show him how to get to Jefferson Street. What? Those little red flags are popping up everywhere. The buzzers and sirens and stranger danger lessons my parents taught me since I was in primary school are screaming in my brain. And if this guy's weird vibe didn't show up before, they were now. I didn't like what I was feeling. This guy was just a creep or just completely senile. I look at the old man and I'm wary of him. Part of me is telling me to turn around and walk away. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm gripping the strap to my backpack. His face changes, and I'd never seen this kind of thing happen before, where somebody's face actually makes a shift. And this is the only time I've ever seen it. He immediately looks angry. He doesn't seem like the senile old man anymore. He yells, "Get in the car!" He confirmed the bad feeling in my stomach. For me, the adrenaline is now flowing, and I'm both scared and angry at the fucking balls on the old man. I don't know why this came to mind, but all I could do was yell, "Fuck you!" I'm standing on the sidewalk with my backpack. There's barely anything in it other than my phone, notebook, and some toiletries. There's nothing I can use to defend myself. I'm trying to figure out how big this old man is, but I can't tell. I'm 126 pounds soaking wet at this age with little upper body strength. I don't know if I could do anything if he decides to get out of his car. But he's by himself. But what if he has a knife? I have to go in front or behind his car to keep taking this route home. If I do, will he try to hit me? Will he try to knock me down or back over me with his car? It felt like all those thoughts were happening in an instant, and I'm confused. I just want to go home. He stares at me from inside the car with this look of anger, but he doesn't say anything. It's just silent between, other than the sounds of the cars going by, and he's just staring. It was only like this for a few seconds, but it felt like forever. Once the road is clear, he peeled out into traffic and was gone. I was left standing on the sidewalk of the busy street, confused, tired, and shaking with adrenaline. I just keep thinking to myself over and over, what the fuck was that? I'm not sure whatever happened to that man. I'm sure he had some sort of plan figured out. Find a girl, ask how to get to a well-known street, let her list off the directions, pretend to be a feeble old man that needs help getting there, then hope she's naive enough to accept your request of being the co-pilot. I don't think he was counting on someone not knowing how to get to that street. I really hope he didn't go on to perfect this method and use it on some girl or boy in the future. I think back to this now and wonder if I would have reacted differently. I wish I had seen the license plate at least. Don't think that just because you're on a busy street in broad daylight that you're safe or that nothing could happen to you. Keep your eyes peeled, be prepared, and don't worry about not being polite. When your gut is telling you something's up, listen. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. And I guess I'll give you guys a special treat. Here's my corpse husband impression, because you guys like that one so much. For a little bit of backstory, my mom said I'm not allowed to eat cake because it's not my birthday. I told that stupid bitch to shut the fuck up or I'll absolutely murder her. Alright, I hope that was not too much, holy shit. Alright, bye guys.